Building a water-cooled PC can be a pretty risky task. Expensive PC components and liquid can be a really volatile mix if done incorrectly. But today I'm going to share some of my useful tips and tricks that I've learned along the way building custom water-cooled machines like this, so you don't have to make the mistakes and go through all of the stress like I did. In fact, if I could go back in time when I water-cooled my first PC, these tips would have been immensely helpful, saving me a lot of time, stress, and money. So before you water-cool your gaming PC, here's what you need to know. Let's start off with the tubing. The two main categories here, which you're probably familiar with: hard tubing, commonly PETG or acrylic, and then soft tubing, which is commonly made from PVC when clear, but also EPDM rubber, as with EK's ZMT tubing. Soft tubing is by far the easiest and fastest way to get a custom water cooling loop up and running, and when done right, I think we can agree looks extremely good. So don't feel too pressured to go for hardline tubing for your first custom water cooling build. After all, soft tubing can look quite good as well. There is no doubt though that hard tubing is the best route to go if aesthetics and the kind of visual presentation of your build is another reason that you're building a custom loop in the first place. Nothing beats those parallel tubes with those clean bends. Personally, I frequently opt for EK's ZMT soft tubing for pretty much all of my ITX water-cooled builds. It's easy to work with and has a great matte black aesthetic, but then opt for hard tubing for builds that might be more of a display piece. For super compact ITX builds, I'd even recommend going with something more flexible like soft clear tubing such as EK's DuraClear, and I'd recommend even a smaller diameter such as 12mm to make things easier. Generally, tubing with an outer diameter of 16mm is most common. Next order of business, the fittings, which are completely different for hard tubing and soft tubing, so make sure you're buying the correct ones. Soft tube fittings have a small barb on the inner part of the fitting that the tubing slides and stretches over, whereas hard tube fittings only require compression on the outer diameter. One tip here is to always buy a few more extra fittings than your loop requires. You never know if you'll accidentally tear an O-ring or maybe even change your mind on the loop design entirely. You also have 45° and 90° adapters for these fittings, making your life a lot easier when it comes time to route your tubing. It's also possible to link multiple 45 and 90° fittings together for some really interesting routing, and some that just wouldn't be possible otherwise with regular tubing. Now, one really important tip here that I can give with soft tubing, especially EK-ZMT, and working with compression fittings, is to soak the end of the tubing in distilled water before installation. This way, the tubing stretches over the internal barb a lot easier, but most of all, sliding and screwing the lock over the tubing is so much easier. This is especially important with EK-ZMT tubing, which is pretty thick. It's otherwise almost impossible to work with when the tubing is completely dry. Getting a bit deeper into the parts now, that's where extenders come in. These come in many sizes and are available with either female or male ports on either end. These are especially handy when you need to install a 90° fitting, but you also need a bit of extra height to clear a fan or just to line up nicely with another fitting. This way you can get much cleaner tubing runs with less stress and torque on the tubing and the fittings. Seriously though, I can't express how much extenders have helped with a lot of my previous builds, so do keep in mind where they could possibly be incorporated into your own loop. Then, if you're finding it difficult to position a fill or drain port somewhere in your loop, this is where T-fittings come in. These are basically just an extender fitting with an additional access port, which can then be used for filling or draining the loop. Now, one very important tip for beginners is to double check the flow direction of your loop and your water blocks. So here we can see the inlet port, which is indicated by the jet plate. Double check that you're not kind of reversing this and having that as the outlet port, because that kind of just goes against the design of the water block in the first place. The flow direction of your build can be checked from the pump, of course, so make sure you check where the inlet and the outlet ports are kind of feeding to and from, and it makes most sense to kind of build your loop starting from there first. Now, on the contrary, something that doesn't matter is loop order. That is the order of the components in the loop. Whether the CPU is cooled after the GPU or before the radiator or the other way around, it doesn't actually matter. The flow rate in pretty much any custom water cooling loop is so fast that there's never really any time for the liquid to heat up dramatically in any one spot. Sure, you might find a 1° or so difference between the inlet and outlet port of a radiator, but that's not really enough to make a significant difference to your CPU or GPU temperatures. But before you even think about pouring any liquid into your loop in the first place, you should definitely use this first. This is a leak tester from EK, and it simply checks your custom loop for air tightness. It's pretty easy to use. You just connect it to your fill or drain port, fill your lube up with the air using the hand pump, and then close the valve and wait around 15 minutes. If you notice the gauge decreasing, then there's an air leak somewhere in your loop that you need to go and find. Most likely this is a fitting that was not installed 100% correctly. Otherwise, if the dial maintains the same position over at least 15 to 20 minutes, your loop is ready to be filled up. Filling most custom loops is usually pretty simple and involves pouring directly into the reservoir, which should also pour into the pump. It's very important to never let the pump run dry, which is where there is no coolant running into the pump and circulating the loop, so make sure the pump is continuously topped up or turned off before topping up the loop again. Now, one piece of hardware that I would absolutely recommend adding to every custom loop out there is a coolant temperature sensor. I've done a full video on this and how it works, so definitely check that out, but there's just no way that I'll go back to controlling my fan curve based off of CPU or GPU temperature ever again. It's definitely the most logical way to set up your fan curve for a water-cooled build and completely eliminates the sporadic ramping up and ramping down of your fans. Now, in terms of what pump to go for your custom water cooling loop, D5 is going to be first preference for most people. They're the largest and quietest pumps that you can put in a custom water cooling PC. They move the most volume of water for the kind of noise levels that they create. So if you can put a D5 pump, because they are a bit larger than this, if your case does support it, definitely go with that first. Next option would be something like this. So this is DDC. They're a bit more of a popular option for ITX cases where space is a little bit more compromised. But definitely be a lot more careful here, because DDC is a lot more hit and miss, in my experience at least, compared to D5. You can either end up with a DDC pump which is extremely loud and won't stop buzzing, or something really quiet like this, which is the Swiftech MCP35X. So definitely do your research if you are planning on picking up a DDC pump. You also have another option for extremely compact loops, such as AlphaCool's tiny DCLT pump. Believe it or not, this is actually powerful enough to run a single radiator loop. I've used it in one of my own personal builds previously, and it worked incredibly well. Now, my go-to coolant of choice is EK Waterblock's CryoFuel, and usually the clear variant for pure reliability, but they of course have some opaque solutions as well, which I've had success with in the past. I do admit though, I haven't run opaque solutions long enough in my own personal systems to give comments on reliability, but generally if you're going with opaque coolant, prepare for some additional maintenance down the road. That might be as simple as needing to flush out and replace the coolant if it starts discoloring or separating into layers, or as extensive as pulling apart your water blocks and giving them a complete scrub. One thing's for sure though, you just can't beat the look of an opaque coolant in a custom loop. I think it looks absolutely sick. Coolants with dye in them are also very popular and generally have a much lower risk of clogging, but personally I've never used them. And on this note, it's absolutely essential to give your radiators and blocks a solid rinse with distilled water before you even get started with your loop. This is a simple precaution that could save you hours of cleaning later on. And just to finish off, I want to share some really interesting water cooling hardware that I've come across throughout my builds that you might find helpful as well. To start with, Barrow's CPU pump block is something that I've yet to use in a full build, but can be incredibly effective to save on space and the general complexity and number of parts involved in your loop. It's basically a CPU block, a pump, and a reservoir in one piece, and it's seriously useful for small form factor cases. Similarly, if you're doing a custom loop in the NKSM1, especially if it's a dual radiator loop like I've got here, the Iceman pump res combo is an absolute lifesaver. There is really no easier or faster way to get a custom loop up and running in this case. I also have to give Cool Answer's 90-degree low profile fittings an honorable mention. These can be a real lifesaver when normal size 90-degree fittings are just simply too big. And then lastly, quick disconnect fittings can be super handy if you need to easily remove or swap out components from your loop. These can also be used to connect a reservoir in line with the loop to get it completely topped up for builds without a full-sized reservoir. So those are pretty much all of the tips and tricks that I can give you at this point to help you along with your first custom water cooling loop. And if I forgot anything, or if you have anything to add, feel free to leave that down below in the comments. As always, a huge thanks for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.